but.
Right. All right, can you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you and good evening. It is Tuesday, January 27th. We just came from executive session where we were discussing non-union compensation. Before we begin, I just want to take a minute to just acknowledge the incredible work of our DPW and park staff over the course of the storm. I don't think I have to tell everyone. I think anyone listening or here knows that there was a huge storm over the weekend, and the job that the staff did in Rybrook to clear those roads and keep them open. The job that was done was absolutely incredible. Really by early Sunday morning, everything was free and clear. I also want to say thank you to the police and fire and EMS and all other emergency services that were out keeping our residents safe. We drive around the village Sunday, yesterday, and everything was in great shape. And I just, it was more than 24 hours where they were working their butts off to really keep everything open. And I just want to say, from this board, a huge thank you to all involved.
Thank you, Mayor. Really appreciate it, and we'll share that with all the staff. They really did a great job. I echo everything you just said. That they started, 5 in the morning or so on 6 in the morning on Sunday and went till yesterday about 3 o'clock in the afternoon by the time they clean up, because even when they're done with the roadways, they come back at all our facilities and kind of open up the parking areas and the sidewalks that we have to maintain, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So
really just incredible job. So thank you to everyone.
and a lot of snow.
Wow. That was a lot of snow, and then it got heavy at the end, which it's one of these changing storms that's never easy to deal with. But certainly we as residents appreciate everything that was done. All right, moving into our agenda, we have a report presentation to start us off. From the Technology and Communications Commission Communication Plan recommendations.
Podium or?
Podium would be great.
Podium.
Only because it gets captured in the mic that way.
Yeah.
Good evening.
Evening.
My name is Rob Georges. I'm a Rybrook resident and member of the committee, and I'm here with
Pam Jaffe, also a resident and member of the community. And like I just said to David, my tenure on this committee predates being a town council person, so I'm here as a committee member.
And so we just wanted to thank you for your attention to this issue. The committee's been working, basically addressing the issue of the communication to getting out information to the different members of the village, and with the closing of the Westmoreland News. I know you all have some of this information in the notes, and so we just wanted to reiterate that we've sort of tried to come up with some ideas about ways that we can make sure that important information now gets out without that newspaper, that can address both the older members of the village, as well as the younger members who, tend to receive their news in different ways. And so there have been a number of sort of specific ideas that are being worked through, including a printout that would be delivered to the library and the senior center, and using some technology with text messaging, and trying to keep the budget pretty reasonable for this. And I know Pam has a lot of the details of the specifics that she'd be willing to answer questions and share, but we really want to just make sure that the real important information gets to as many people as possible, and I'm sure we all share that concern.
And this has definitely been on the tech committee's mind ever since the relaunch of the website, and the website's now such a great destination. But without Fred, I know a lot of the communication is going to fall to the fine gentleman here. So a lot of what we wanted to do is make sure it's streamlined, and perhaps we can provide some tools that would just make it easier to multi-purpose the information that's going out. So just going through quickly, Val, you had sat with us on all, you're there on all the meetings, so you know this, and Greg knows this all. But we do want to explore if we can find a cost-effective text SMS automation. I'll say on an aside, it's very helpful for the town. It's just a great device to get information right into people's phones and, their text messages, because as great of a job as you do on Facebook, not everyone uses Facebook as a social anymore. I know that we also are on Instagram. Newsletters, doing, and direct email doing a great job, but there are challenges, as we've said. Like, we know the older generation is not getting these messages. So is there a way that we can get to them kind of pen and paper fashion? So that's when we were thinking, let's work with the library, let's work with the senior center, let's work with the two plazas. Perhaps there's a way that, the information that's coming here, just as a monthly basis, we can make it available to the seniors. Just trying to see what else we have. Community Pass, I believe, Greg, you brought that up. There's already a mobile phone number. So actually what you could do as far as SMS and additional newsletter signups is, once again, send an opt-in message to all of Community Pass. And then the other way that you might be able to gather an armful of phone numbers and emails that you don't have already is to partner with the district again, which was done, I believe, around 5 years ago, to share databases. Then, of course, you send an opt-in after you clean the list up. One of the things that we thought was really important is also raising up your visibility. So a lot of people don't know what we do in municipal government. They don't know what the members of the government do. And this is something that the Tech Committee has been talking about, I believe, since Jason was our liaison, is possibly utilizing that channel, the cable channel, YouTube, utilizing Instagram, just having kind of a meet your officials where you guys, once a month can get on and just talk about what's happening in the village. Is there anything of note that you want residents to know about? And that way, we were just saying this earlier too. I realize that election season comes around awfully frequently, and it's nice for people to get to know your faces, and perhaps that will help better the turnout that we get for municipal government elections. I know there are changes afoot with timing of elections, but it's great for your faces to be out as much as possible. And putting, what the government is working for the people, just putting it out into the world. David, you look really upset.
No, I was just thinking of something else that we used to do when I first moved here. With the public school, when there was going to be a delay, one person would be responsible for X number of people to make sure they notify all those people. And I have set that up on my block, which is only 10 houses. We have a text chain for all 10 houses. So if anything's happening, any one person can text all 10 houses at once and say, gee, there's a school delay. Doesn't affect me, obviously, but everybody needs it. Or there's a power outage, or this. And I would love to see us basically get volunteers to say, I will be responsible for X number of people to make sure they know what's going on.
So good old-fashioned snow chain, basically. I think that's something that you could do in conjunction with text messaging, just as part of a larger plan. I think that could definitely be a component of it. Have neighbors, neighbor advocates, and then you could certainly, incentivize it for them somehow.
But that was the extent of my consternation.
Okay, thank God. All right, Chris, you're also looking quizzical. Nothing?
No, I've got some things I'll comment later on, that some things maybe to receive feedback on.
Okay, great. And then knowing that we don't have the Westmore News anymore, there were, the committee was tossing around other publications, and I think we're going to have to look into just a steady relationship, which I know that we have with the Ride Record and Patch. Greg, you already have contacts at News 12 that you reach out to every time, there's something of note happening here. So, basically, there's a TLDR of this. If you don't want to read the entire plan, there's a very shortened version. But we know that, A, the issue with no Fred and workload, and B, being that cost is always going to be an issue, I think it would be a pilot, and seeing if we could implement a few of these things, such as the SMS, at a lower cost, just for a test run. And then really important, I think this as well was one of Greg's great ideas in the meeting, utilizing SurveyMonkey to see what residents want to hear from the board about. And, just more outreach, more interaction with the residents via that tool.
Wouldn't SurveyMonkey reach the very people who are probably connected anyway?
Yes, but they're a good subsample. And hopefully, you can always take a survey and offer an incentive to forward it. So I believe we talked about this, Jason, like 10 years ago, but like gift cards, right? Like sign up or forward this to X number of people. You'll be signed up to possibly win a gift, $15 gift card to Rye Ridge Plaza or something like that. So you can reward people in order to have them, participate and pass along. And it's not like you're giving everyone, it's a chance to win.
Yeah, I would just add, if you're going to do SurveyMonkey to a part of the village, you could also do, I know there's talk of putting out sort of like a monthly newsletter at the senior center and the library. You could start there with a survey as well and just sort of get all the results together that way.
And, Pam, like you said, we've been talking about a lot of these things for a long time, and it's unfortunate, that we can't better get word out to the community, and the loss of the Westmore News really was huge for Rybrook, and not just Rybrook, also for Portchester and
Town.
and the county, and the town, and even this came up at a library discussion when I was at a meeting there the other day. It was
We're very comfortable with programs like SurveyMonkey. We use it for recreation. After every single recreation program we run, we do a SurveyMonkey survey to all the participants to see what they liked about it, what they didn't like about it, getting feedback. We never really used it for the community survey, and that might be a good way to reach out.
And I'm certainly open to trying some of the meet the mayor things again. When I've done it in the past, there hasn't been great turnout. I did one at Lenny's. I think I got 4 people that came.
Well, this would just be,
But it's always
Greg or
good.
Chris with the phone, with you talking, and then it goes out over social. It could be super easy. It could be you here with the flag behind you, and very informal.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely open to giving it a try.
Did you let people know that you were paying?
I was not paying, and so no. But
Don't worry, Nancy's had the same problem. She can't get anyone to turn up to Starbucks for her.
right, I know it's tough. But and I should say that we really appreciate the committee looking into this. This is something that we've been struggling with. There's no doubt that it's
And we're the worst promoters of ourselves sometimes too. In terms of how we let people know what we're doing, good or bad. You mentioned in your report about a $2,500 about annually you thought could accomplish some of the things you had in there.
Very bare
What
bones, but
was
I
that
think-
mostly? What would that money mostly be going toward? Was that the texting system?
I think you're going to need it for some tools. I don't know what you and Greg have at your command now, but something like Canva to help you as far as designing. The SMS outreach is going to cost money. If you do, I know you do robocalls, and I don't know what the cost equation is on a robocall type thing, but it's got to be kind of a similar platform and a similar outlay. And something that I've had us do on the town front, I don't know if you're doing this, but if you have a social post and it's something that's important, putting a tiny bit of ad spend and targeting an audience will get you more amplification. So it's nice to just have a communications budget And that's something that the tech committee can get reinvigorated and communicate and work with you on.
So mind if I comment on a couple of things? So one of the things staff is looking to do, we have an employee and community support group. One is two different groups. One's employee group, and there's also a community support group saying, how do we have more community events? How do we reach out to the community better? And one of the things we've been kind of toying with is more use of Instagram to promote and interview employees, quick snippets of, meet the whoever and ask them a question about themselves or of the department, and kind of like move it on to the next department, and doing like a quick kind of meet your municipal staff piece, and also learn about something that's going on. That might be something that's something we've been recently talking about. I see you smiling, Bert. That means you're first, so.
It's
Eric's second
basically
now.
the
He's
same
smiling.
concept, and it's just
Yeah.
adding the board into that mix.
Yeah. And Michael, we're scared to have on because you never know what he's going to say. That's the problem there. One of the things I'm seeing as a kind of a trend nationally in our associations is changing the websites to more of a social media driven, and they're more they're driven. If you look at the websites, people are so in tune with their phones now that you want the websites that you can work with small. They're built for small staff where you're really driving into the social media platform through your website, where if you're doing something on your website, it's going to go out to all your social media platforms automatically using AI and other systems. And it's also, if you go to the website, it's going to have all the social media posts literally clearly. It's almost driving the website rather than the other way around.
It's very
It's not
visual.
supporting, but you're seeing it more visual, and it has a very good app-supported program as well, so that it looks well. It's built for that platform. So it's almost reversing, kind of sending out. In the past, it used to be you put in your website and then send it out on Instagram and link it back to the website, but it's almost
It's the
flipping
flip
it
of that,
back.
Yeah.
Is that something you think something we should pursue a little bit more, thinking that way?
I definitely like that idea. The one thing is you'd have to ask the Board of Trustees about funding. So remember when we relaunched the website itself?
It's
Fred
expensive.
and Jason would know what that cost was, but I know it was 5 digits.
Yeah.
And we waited a year in order to get
Takes
the
a while to implement.
trustees
Too.
to vote into it. And I don't know if it had to be a referendum. I don't think it
No.
did because it was under a
No.
certain cap. But I do think that's wiser and easier.
In the long term, it's a lot easier for staff, plus you're also getting the information out from one resource. So it's something to at least consider.
I mean, we definitely have automation in here and using AI to make your lives easier. So
Yeah.
that
We
is,
I love AI, so.
I know, it makes everything great. But I like that idea. I think that would be a great thing to look
And
into.
I can forward you some of the sites that were referred to in our professional associations as good samples.
Okay, great. And then I'm going to AOT next month, so if I find anything, I can
Great.
send it right back to you.
Excellent.
Yeah, no, I would, even if it's quite a bit of money, I would support it because, I don't want to say none of what we do matters if nobody knows about it, but, it's, communicating is obviously part of our jobs, which all the department heads know, and I think they do a great job, but it's pretty fragmented, and I definitely support the mobile-first concept. I used to do digital marketing. It's one of my careers, and I stopped in 2018, and we had gone from 2012, 75% of people were coming from desktops, to, by 2018, 75% were from mobile, and that's 7 years ago. So now it must be, I don't know, 95, almost 100. I don't think people have desktops at home anymore. They're almost all 100% using their device. So if it has, even if it's a major redesign, I think it's worth it regarding communicating. And people don't certainly rush back to their desktop. It's a work thing if they have one at all. They don't rush back to their desktop when they're trying to figure out what's going on with the village. So, even if it's a major, I think we just have to keep improving the platforms. And, it's unfortunate the paper's not around to help us. But, like I said at the previous meeting, it's sort of, yes, everything you've suggested I think is a great idea. And then I support even more because it's just important.
And you do
It's
have
interesting.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
sorry, no, go ahead.
You have a lot of the community accessible to you. A lot of times if you're building up a platform for social of any sort, or SMS or newsletter, it's pay per address, pay per phone number. But the village is uniquely positioned that you have access to the school district, you have access to community pass and recreation, so you've got, a ton of emails already at your fingertips that you just need to come, and comb in and comb through on a more regular basis.
Yeah, I like the idea of, merging the school website, not website, the school email list with our email list. That's probably when there's really important information, perhaps one of our, and, unless it's just a little schedule change or an advertisement for an event. Like if it's really important information, I think that email is probably some of our best way of getting the word out. And especially when new community members move in, they're focused on getting hooked into the school communication thing, but they may not always think about getting connected to the village until there's something really important. So, yeah.
I remember my first robocall from Jason during COVID. Don't leave the house.
Well,
So
that's the other
Definitely
thing.
like utilizing the technology and, the information you have at hand.
I think the last time I can remember the robocalls was like quite a while ago, unless my number's no
Yeah.
longer in the system or something,
No,
but.
those were done mostly during COVID.
Right.
Or other crises, other emergency situations. The hard part about our robocall system that we use is it can only be used for emergency purposes. So if you're not
okay.
clear, so
Right.
and the reason is we get a list from Verizon that includes non-published numbers. And so as a result of that, the agreement that we signed with them to get that was that we can only use it for emergency purposes. So we can't use it just for there's a public hearing on this, come on out. We're not allowed to use it for that.
Boy, that's.
But
sort
what
of
we're able to do is get to, if there's an emergency, we're able to get to a larger group of people.
Right.
That's a,
No, I know. It's
Yeah.
just, I think what we're thinking is like the SMS texting. The
Yeah.
newsletters is the next iteration of that technology.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And the ability to reach more people as long as you've got the legal component of making sure they've opted in.
and clearly the other trend is YouTube. We use YouTube for John Mungo's, his show that he does for Rybrook Focus. But, you talk about young professionals now, younger people today in their 20s and 30s, that's where they're going for information now, is YouTube, and that's overtaking most other platforms in terms of where people are going to get information.
Right.
It's not the TV anymore, that's where they're
No,
going.
it is, you're right, 100% not.
So that's an opportunity that, we can pursue more too.
And I think that goes back to kind of multi-purposing that video and putting out across multiple channels
Mhm.
and finding a way to do it that you just plug it one place and it seeds out.
Gets out.
I think the SMS is the way to go. The texting is definitely a good way to get the word out. No question. That's all the time. People are texting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
All the time.
That is a good way. I mean, you could do both.
Yeah, and we can
Well,
look into
social media,
cost.
Yeah.
But knowing that I don't know what your budget season is,
June
try-
1st. Well, the budget's due March 20th. The tentative budget's due March 20th. Has to be adopted by May 1st.
Okay.
Think that could be done by then?
Well, the 2,500 is no
Well,
problem.
it's, I was gonna say, if you come up even with a rough cost estimate
Yeah.
Yeah.
of what some of these, I think you can hear kind of where the board is leaning, and you come up with even a rough cost estimate, Chris would be able to work it into the budget, at least for year one, until we have a better sense of where we're going from there.
Okay.
Because the text message is much cheaper, right? You said, what was that?
Yeah, 2,500 is.
2,500. I mean, even if that, and you couldn't get the other one, at least we could start with that.
And,
That'll
and
give you a limited number,
Yeah.
but it's a starting point.
Yeah, right, and see where it goes. Absolutely.
great.
All right.
Any
So
other
thank you
questions?
very much for all the hard
Yeah,
work.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Greg.
Be safe, keep warm.
You as well. All right, well, thank you for that presentation.
That was great.
Moving into our resolutions. Resolution number 1, considering waiving restricted hours for Speed Bump LLC to film Birnam Wood, AKA The Spot at 1100 King Street.
Whereas the village code outlines permissible hours of filming and indicates that filming can only take place on certain hours as listed in the resolution, and whereas on January 13th of this year, the board waived the filming restrictions with respect to hours by allowing indoor filming associated operations for Speed Bump LLC to film Birnam Wood, AKA The Spot, during the hours requested in their application. And whereas Speed Bump LLC has submitted a further application that the permissible hours of operation be extended to allow indoor filming for February 2nd, 6th, and 20th from 7 a.m. to 4 a.m. 7 a.m. to 4, 7,
Yes, but it's also
okay, for
padded.
filming. And whereas the Speed Bump LLC has requested flexibility to perform additional indoor filming on other days with additional daily permits at 1100 King Street for the extended hours when weather conditions do not cooperate at other filming sites. And whereas the code allows for that the village board may waive certain provisions of the filming code at its discretion. Excuse me. Now therefore be resolved that the Board of Trustees waives the filming restrictions with respect to hours of operation by allowing indoor filming and associated operations during the extended hours requested in their application, as well as on additional days approved by the village administrator when weather conditions do not cooperate at other outdoor filming sites. And be further resolved, the village clerk is authorized to sign and execute any documents necessary for the purposes of the resolution.
Thank you, Chris. Can I have a motion and second, please?
Second.
Clearly, we have a representative from the production company. What's changed?
Hi, my name's Lauren Marzell. I'm the assistant location manager. Nothing much has changed. We're going to be filming at this location multiple times until May. And basically, we just wanted to, because we're going to be coming back so often, we just wanted to see if it would be possible to work with you to waive those times. Now, I padded it quite a bit. Most of the time we'll be finishing around probably midnight, but there are days, say we're filming a scene outside that requires, and this actually doesn't really pertain to this location, it's more say on like a Wednesday, we're filming a night scene, and so we need the dark, and that might mean we have a certain turnaround. So say we're filming at 1100 King Street on Friday, we may have to start at 3 p.m. because we started so late earlier in the week. Does that make sense? So I just padded it quite a bit because I just don't know what, we're moving so quickly that I'm a little worried that I might miss a board meeting when I'm trying to get these hours waived in the future. So that's why I was wondering if it would be possible to get the late time waived.
Can I add a little?
Yeah,
more? So
please,
last
Chris.
time when this was discussed, the applicant was unable to be here. So we didn't have answers to certain questions. So some of the questions we had was where were the generators going to be placed? Was it going to be near the residence? Is there going to be, what was the purpose of the boom? Was it for lighting or anything that was going to, everyone's concerned about any impact to neighboring residents. Since that time, we've seen the setup. Greg's gone out on site, and they're not doing outside lighting into the building, and the generators are very quiet. They're inside structures, so you don't hear anything. So we're comfortable that there's no real impact on the neighbors. So the question is, as long as it stays that way, what the applicant is finding is they're going to have additional requests for more time there, that it's finding it's working well. And also when there's bad weather days at other locations, they'd like the ability to come here. Now, a permit is required, a film permit is required for every day you film, so they still have to get permits. So, but the staff is at least comfortable to allow, if the board will waive the hours, since it's all indoor filming and doesn't impact the neighbors, we're comfortable with just issuing the permits if the board is comfortable giving that flexibility to the staff
Through May. you're saying.
Right.
through May.
All right, so what we're looking for then is not necessarily specific dates of waiving the hours, but essentially, like you said, it's just giving the staff the ability to give the okay on that.
Yeah, issue the permits.
All right.
Because otherwise, they don't always know the dates, or if it's bad weather and they can go there and it's all indoor, why not? If they can use that day of filming.
Right, and if we're comfortable with the setup, I think, I think we would have to put, a caveat in here, unless something drastically.
Well, then,
changes.
that's why I said they still need approval. So I could always just not issue the approval
Right,
if there's any
right,
impact.
so it doesn't necessarily have to be in the resolution, it comes down to whether or not we trust you, Chris.
That's right. Exactly.
So hear me out. They'll get this broad
Waiving of hours.
waiver of hours. Every day that they need it, they come and ask us for approval. We give them a verbal
No, yeah, well, we have paperwork.
Maybe-
We have
And
issued
then,
permits.
say that day we get 1,700 complaints, the next day when they ask for approval.
Stop it, or we
Okay.
can pull it that day.
That's it, that's fair.
If we go out there and they're,
Yeah.
if they go out there and they see it's,
Yeah,
lit up
like
the neighborhood.
fireworks,
then-
okay.
Yeah, the outside generators next to the neighbors, then,
fair. As long
so
as
they know
that's-
it's in their interest to remain peaceful.
And if there were ever any complaints, like we
Dress.
work with lots of neighbors, we want to keep people happy, we don't want to disturb the peace, so if you guys let us know, we'll do our best to, if there was a generator making too much noise near someplace, we'd move it. But for the most part, actually, we're tied into the electrical at the building, so there's
Right,
not
right,
many
you-
generators.
right, you don't need
It's
many
for
generators.
maybe the lift would
Okay.
be the only
I was gonna
time,
say,
but
right.
The lift
The
is just to
airport-
bring stuff into the building.
the lift
Right.
does have lights,
Mhm.
but it shines into the building.
Mhm.
So there's no light shining in neighborhoods at
Exterior.
all. It's all inside. And when I was there, the airplanes were actually louder than any of our equipment. So,
We have the ability to not issue the permits if it becomes a problem, and then you'd have to follow the traditional way of coming to the board.
okay.
And as Administrator Bradbury said, I did tour the site, and I can guarantee you all that the impact on neighbors is virtually zero. That you honestly, you're going to hear planes and cars way more than you hear anything going inside.
Yeah. It's a figure, yeah.
All right, and given that it's mostly interior, I mean, it's all interior.
interior.
It's all interior filming, I mean, that really lessens what, and it's happened there before where they've done this, and, if I remember correctly, one of the times that they were doing it, they were brought in a lot of lights
Yeah.
to simulate daytime.
Yeah.
Inside, even though they were filming at night, so it's, I personally feel comfortable with this, just wondering if we have any other questions, comments from anyone else on the board.
I have no problems with this. I haven't gone through this myself
Right.
in a
Many
previous
times, I'm
career,
sure.
yes.
No, I have no problem. I've actually been asked by a resident which agency you used for extras. This fellow does a lot of extra work, and he asked me for a friend, not me for sure.
I actually,
He lives super close to this location, and
Are
he,
they members of SAG or AFTRA?
yes, it's something like, but I guess you have to know which agency to
I'll
contact.
find out
Yeah,
and let
okay.
Greg know. I actually don't know because I don't.
Don,
deal
if
with
you
that.
appear in this later on, it's my friend,
No, but I'm okay with this request, for sure.
All right, any other questions or
Nope.
comments from the board? All right, I would ask if it comes with a tour for the mayor, but no, that's,
If any of you want to stop by, you can just message me and I can walk you guys through.
okay.
So
wish
it's
we could do
really,
a movie.
it's not a big deal.
Can we get one of these movies?
Like being on
Yeah.
camera, which
No.
says a lot, because someone
I
kind
think
of.
being incognito, like, we
always
we
told
enjoy
to have
showing you
a
guys
face
what we
made
do,
for
so.
radio.
I did actually
I
show
just
you
want
guys
to do the
a
racing
great
car
experience.
scene, that's all.
I don't think mine was even made for radio. All right, all right, I think,
Thank you.
Trustee Heiser,
Yes.
Trustee Crom,
Yes.
Trustee Morlino,
Yes.
and Mayor Klein.
yes, thank you, good luck
All
with
right,
that.
Thank
with
you
that.
so much.
Okay.
And I think the next application, we're going to table because they couldn't be here tonight. Because of the storm, they were doing
Okay.
other tasks.
All right, so we are going to table resolution number 2, moving to resolution number 3. Considering setting a public hearing on a local law modifying Chapter 240 subsection A of the Village Code to prohibit parking at the corner of Elm Hill Drive and Betsy Brown Road.
Now therefore be resolved that a public hearing will be held by the Board of Trustees on Tuesday, February 24th at 7:30 PM on the proposed local law amending Chapter 240 subsection A concerning prohibited parking at the corner of Elm Hill Drive and Betsy Brown to authorize the impoundment and/or immobilization of vehicles.
No,
What's that?
wrong resolution.
Ah,
Yeah,
somehow down one?
somehow some extra words got in there, it looks like.
Prohibiting parking.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't,
But it is the right topic, right?
it is the right, Elm Hill and Betsy Brown to authorize, it's,
Authorized no
no,
parking.
that from Betsy Brown Road on is incorrect in the resolution.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
It probably should just say, creating no parking zone.
All right, just say, as indicated in the draft local law.
Yeah, I would say that.
Sorry about that.
Sorry, and I just noticed it as you were reading. I didn't notice it beforehand. My apologies. All right. Okay, so can I please have a motion and a second?
So moved.
This went to the...
Second,
Second.
second,
Oh,
second.
And again, this is just setting a public hearing.
It's just a public hearing, yeah.
This is just setting the public hearing on this. I want to say, this and the next resolution, I just want to say, maybe not the next resolution, but I'd like to thank our traffic committee for taking a look at this and really vetting it before it gets to us. That, we know that this has undergone some serious consideration, before it comes to us, and we really appreciate that.
We have a second, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and this is, if you look at the maps that Michael Nowak prepared, that's very helpful. And if
Absolutely.
you drive the area, you can see it's kind of a tough bend that you can't see if people are parked there or not. So by having no parking, that will take away some of that safety concern. And as you said, the Traffic Commission is a recommendation from the Traffic Commission.
Yeah, and I'm assuming neighbors who live in that area will be notified of this
We can.
public hearing?
So, quick question.
Again, this goes back to the Technology and
Yes.
Communications Committee.
Are these two options or one option here? You got one that goes from,
Two different signs.
Two different signs.
Basically, it's a no parking on that whole side, though. With the second one shows, so there's no parking basically from Betsy Brown to the one opposite Old Oak. The other sign is basically saying no parking in both directions.
both sides.
It's because of the distance, you
Yeah.
just need
And
a
if the
sign in
road-
between.
You've got people coming around that turn, coming off of Betsy Brown onto Elm Hill. And if people are parking on the street, the road gets very narrow at night. And then you've got people turning off of Old Oak, which is then, they're not looking both. I mean, it is a little bit of an interesting intersection. There's no doubt.
Yeah. You want us to notify the immediate neighbors on both sides?
Potentially, just so that
Yeah,
they
you should.
know.
Yeah.
Just so if they have an opportunity to voice their opinions.
I just want to make sure the distance, we'll just do it on the neighbors adjoining on both sides, anywhere on both sides.
I think where the signs are going, it's,
Okay.
yeah, essentially it's three houses.
On the other side of the street.
Including one who had their
Yeah.
number changed, so.
Okay.
Oh, gotcha.
Well, all the more reason to put notices out.
All right. All right, again, this is just setting the public hearing. Any other questions or comments?
No.
Trustee Heiser,
Yes.
Trustee Crom,
Yes.
Trustee Morlino,
Yes.
Mayor Klein.
Yes, thank you. Resolution number 4, considering setting a public hearing on a proposed local law amending Chapter 240 of the Village Code to authorize the impoundment and/or immobilization of vehicles for delinquent parking tickets and to convert unclaimed abandoned vehicles to a village use.
The title might be longer than the
I think it
resolve
is so
clause.
longer than the.
Now therefore be resolved that the public hearing will be held by the board on Tuesday, February 24th at 7:30 PM on the proposed local law amending Chapter 240 of the Village Code to authorize the impoundment or immobilization of vehicles for delinquent parking tickets and to convert unclaimed abandoned vehicles to a village use.
Thank you, Chris. Can I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Motion. Second.
Thank you, sir. And again, this is just setting a public hearing. This one I'll have some questions about. I don't know if it's better now or.
Well, if you have questions,
Chief, you wanna
the issue
come up?
is if there's questions about the local law language, that should be done now because otherwise you can't act on it the night of the
Right.
vote.
Right, I did read, no, I have to look back at it. I did read the law.
Evening, Mayor and trustees. So with regards to this proposed local law, obviously we saw the article that came out with regards to delinquent parking tickets that we had no idea, we never collected. So in order to in order for us to be able to go out and find the said vehicles that may be scofflawed, we have to have a local law in effect and able to immobilize them if they're under a certain dollar amount, or tow them if they're over a certain dollar amount.
Okay.
Right now, what do we do? What is the protocol now? Nothing.
Nothing.
Well, and I was wondering whether this
Yes.
was in relation to,
Yes.
to the fact that, the town had found that there were years and years of, unpaid tickets. And, I wonder whether there's any, are we going to give residents a chance to correct?
We have to,
Right, okay.
before we can just go out. Because they got one response, I mean, they get one notice from the town of Rye Court, and then they would never follow up on it again.
Right,
So,
Oh, I see.
right, so they're gonna have to be noticed, with,
Again.
you have outstanding parking fines
you have to have
due.
a certain amount of time notice, and we might have to give a second notice, and then if, who knows, maybe the people that had all these tickets are no longer residents,
Right,
and their vehicles may not even be here, so.
right, I just, yeah, and again, it comes to the question of, do they have time to cure this? So it's,
Well, they get a certain amount of time, yeah.
right,
And also over a certain amount. So the local law does include something we need to discuss, which we need to add in a number for when, for the purpose of this section, I'll read the sentence. Delinquent shall mean a parking ticket, warrant, or summons that has not been answered by the required appearance date, and for which fines and applicable surcharges have not been paid in the amount of, and we need to pick an amount. And I think there was a discussion with council somewhere, like a reasonable amount, like something like $200. So it's got to be, enough of a fine that's not a minor one, but it's, significant enough that,
I can tell you
They
what
haven't paid
Worcester
it.
does.
how much is that?
So they have to have at least 3 tickets outstanding. For immobilization, it's under $1,000. For
Oh.
a towing, it's over.
1,000?
Yeah.
For an immobilization or a towing?
Well, 1,000 to tow it,
1,000 to under
well,
1,000.
under 1,000.
1,000.
They boot it.
immobilization, so they get a boot, and then they
Yeah, I was
have,
gonna say, is
Interesting.
it mobilization putting a boot on the car?
Yes,
or a similar device.
yes.
Yep.
So you comfortable with that?
I have a general concern about the whole law. I mean, from what I'm reading about what a lot of communities in Westchester do, it seems like their main way of getting at this is they notify the Department of Motor Vehicles, and people can't re-register their car if the municipality has said there's outstanding parking tickets or whatever. And that's what my understanding is most do. My understanding is Portchester does this, but they're an exception. And it seems to be that the municipalities that tend to do this are more city-ish, I know Portchester's a village, but more that the suburban areas within the county generally don't do the impoundment/booting. It's more of a city thing because the DMV thing evidently works.
I think what we were thinking.
Hasn't worked in 25 years.
I think what we were trying to do is, if we don't control that, that's something we could have a dialogue with the town about, because they'd have to be the one to notify, I would think, because they're the agency that's not,
Issuing the summons.
the town court is the one not collecting it. So what we were trying to figure out, and what the chief was trying to do, was saying, what can we control? Well, if they share with us the information about the delinquent, people with delinquent tickets, and we're driving around and there are some systems that will pick up those drivers. If there's a vehicle with that information that the police pick up, and they can do something about it on the spot. So that was what we were thinking, is maybe we can do something at some threshold if there's somebody who's delinquent over a certain amount, and, three unpaid tickets, or over $1,000, when we could do something about it on our own if we wanted to.
But I need to understand the details more, because are we going to go on, for instance, into the Rye Ridge parking lot, which is,
No,
okay.
it's private property,
So where do we find the vehicles?
in the street.
So it's only if they're driving down the street and we see them?
Parked.
Or parked in a.
Or parked, but they're not parked on public streets mostly, well, in front of their house, I suppose, right? So if we drive by and their car is parked in front of their house on a public street, but if it's in the driveway, no.
No.
I mean, it gets a little bit weird in a non-city environment, because, so now we're sort of penalizing people that aren't, if they're parking in the driveway, they're safe. They're a scofflaw and they're parking in the driveway, that's a safe zone. They can't be impounded or
Can't go on private property.
right, so, I don't know, I just have I can maybe wait for the public hearing, but to me, this is a pretty drastic thing from effectively doing nothing because we didn't know, right? It's not our fault. We didn't know about a lot of the people not paying. And now we find out, and it seems like we're going from 0 to 100, when there might be something in the middle, which is notifying DMV. If it's not us
Well, the
getting.
court is supposed to have done that, and they haven't.
Right, but getting them to do that, or if we have to do it for them or whatever, and then people can't get their car registered, that seems like a pretty,
Or they just drive the car without a registration.
$1,000 worth of parking tickets, do you think that person's going to worry about an expired registration?
No.
why not? Then we arrest them for, I mean,
Yeah, but they may not know, I mean, somebody, I mean, I don't know how quickly, I mean, and I guess the question also comes back to, with the town now realizing this and starting to, I'm assuming they're sending out notices to people, you know, let's say you got the ticket 3 years ago,
They're hiring a company to go after it.
and
is
you
my
never, let's
understanding.
say you got the ticket 3 years ago, and you never paid it, and it was a parking ticket. Are you accruing fees through that 3 years, or because
Up
they
until a
haven't
certain
sent notice?
amount
I'm
of
sure up
It's
to
still the
amount.
original amount. I mean, it's,
You're asking a question that we don't manage, so we don't know, but we know that there's an escalating fee over a certain time when you don't pay it.
right.
I don't
and
know
I'm
when,
just-
I don't know if it hits a peak.
Well, I mean,
That's all.
did you get a $20 ticket, you know, 3 years ago, and now it's $500?
Might be, I don't know. We could find that out.
So-
But don't assume, you know, it's anybody that's coming through the community, like, the systems that the chief was talking about, like there's systems that will
Scanners.
pick up, the scanners will pick it
Yeah,
up on the
like
car.
a
So
license
it's not like
plate
they have to
reader.
run it to find out. It'll pick it up like a license plate
As you're
reader.
driving by.
It's, that makes it so we're
But-
really doing this to our own residents.
Well,
But
you're
it-
saying that, it's residents
Maybe,
and
maybe not.
non-residents, it doesn't
but
have to be
it
residents.
seems punitive, like if we're not going to get them in the Rye Ridge Plaza, right, we can't, because it's private property.
Can though,
so-
right?
Can we?
If
It's
it-
private
You'd have to
property.
ask permission.
And we're not going to get them in their driveway, then we're sort of targeting people that have to park on the street, which
Or
is,
drive in the street, because you can get them when they're driving in the street.
you're going to pull them you mean, you can, if you see them,
Sure.
The scanner picks up the plates and it runs.
Okay.
Right. But that's if the motor vehicle is notified,
Correct.
yeah.
I'm just a little worried that we went from like nothing to like the most drastic thing that we can do without going, something in the middle.
I don't know
Be-
if there is something in the middle that we can do.
Well, I think what makes me a little bit easier with this is knowing that there will be that anyone who's in this situation currently, potentially without knowing it. if
We'll
you
be
guys-
notified. Right.
Will be notified and
Right.
have a chance to pay off the ticket. If you get notice from the town saying that you received this parking ticket, we haven't followed up with you, but now you owe the money, and then you're refusing to pay, to me, that makes it a little more comfortable, in my opinion, that you are knowingly, at that point, not paying it.
You're thumbing your nose at the law.
As opposed to someone who got a parking ticket once, it fell in between the seats in their car, they forgot about it, and they never received a second notice of saying, well, you didn't pay that, however, $25 parking tickets, and now it's $50, which usually spurs the person, oh, well, I better act on this before it becomes 100.
No, I follow. I mean, to me, one of the most compelling things does Portchester do this exact thing?
Yes.
Right, so to me,
Every other municipality in the area does.
well, which ones? Because my understanding is most of that it's more the city sort of places that do it, not the suburban communities in the
Harrison
county.
does it. Rye,
All right, so
Portchester,
for the public hearing,
Merrimack.
I'd like to see, if possible, I'd like to see a list of,
Cities don't have driveways usually, or
and it
Parking
becomes a
shopping
nuisance,
centers and
right,
stuff.
yeah.
Right.
So I'd love to see a list of like the 40-some, which ones do something similar. It doesn't have to be exact. If there is such a thing, because I don't want to be out of step. And it's just my personal feeling. I mean, if I'm outvoted, so be it, but I'm skeptical of going to so harsh. Again, to me, the most compelling thing is if Portchester does it, and we're just sort of piggybacking on it, then, maybe so be it. But to me, Portchester's a completely different sort of environment for traffic, et cetera.
So in terms of follow-up, just to make sure I'm clear, we'll add the language about the 3 tickets and the $1,000 plus or minus, depending on,
Works good with it.
as a draft local law for the public hearing, if that's okay. This way you have something to react to.
Sure.
And also we'll survey the Sound Shore areas to see, this vicinity, to see what
Yeah,
the
who-
laws
yeah,
are,
some-
what they do in their police
But
departments. Is that
including
okay?
like north of here, So I don't want to just hear,
Has to go, that's the question.
well, I don't want to just hear Yonkers does it,
No,
Portchester, you know,
I'm saying
whatever.
Sound Shore, like
Well, I think we're looking in the immediate
Portchester,
area.
Rye, Mamaroneck, Harrison,
Do, you know, north of here too, a little bit.
Like-
Not all the way north, but.
Newcastle, North
Yeah,
Sound,
right,
North Castle.
right, right.
Newcastle,
Newcastle, North
sure.
Castle, sure.
Well,
Yeah.
when a ticket,
One thing I can do is, Christian Gates, my associate, had worked on drafting this local law, and I know in doing so, he had compared it to other local laws in the area. And so I'm texting him, and I asked him to give me a list.
Okay,
So we
great.
could come to the public hearing with whatever that list is, as
Great.
well as you doing a survey.
Yeah, that would make me feel better. Thank you.
Yeah.
Would anyone have any objections, and just talking to council, would anybody have any objections if it allowed us to go onto the private property areas for people who are violating other laws, like if they're in like a fire lane, or I'm trying to think like Rye Ridge, if you're parked in a fire lane and turns out they haven't paid any tickets, we're going to give
I
them another
believe that
ticket.
would already be an option since we're allowed to enforce the fire lanes. And
No, we would give them the fire lane ticket, but if they're not going to pay it, what's the difference? That's what I'm saying is,
No, but
because
at that point, we'd be able to tow the vehicle if it's a scofflaw.
I don't think so, the way it's written. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I was a bit
Well,
confused.
You know how I
was a
feel
bit
about
confused.
people parking in the fire
Me
lanes
too.
at Rye
But if
Ridge
they're
Shopping
but if we're gonna give them the ticket, they're not gonna pay it. If it's somebody that we pull over and they've got over $1,000 in fines, and we, we're gonna give them another ticket, they're not gonna pay, that's not solving the problem either.
I mean, I wonder, all right, so
Okay,
you're talking about private property, but
Commercial properties.
commercial property, I think I would be okay with it with the permission of the commercial property owner. But I mean, we have to check the legality of that, I think, and we also have to, make it very specific of what we mean by that.
Yeah.
Right. Another question would be HOA maintained, owned and maintained streets, right? So, let's say in the arbors, who's responsible for the arbor streets?
That's private property.
Private property.
So you can't, if somebody's parked in the arbors, they're safe.
Yeah.
If they're parked in some sections of Belfair, they're safe, but not others. It's messy, it's messy.
If you say so.
The other, again, if it was me, if you're gonna do it, if they're already being pulled over, if you're gonna issue a ticket for like a fire lane violation, and it turns out they haven't paid any tickets when you run it, that would be an opportunity to me to say, hey, we're gonna do something about this, because they keep doing it.
Makes sense.
And I can look into whether that's permissible, and if so,
Yeah.
add language on that.
There's a
Right.
difference between that and searching parking lots for, up and
Yeah.
down.
And I think I mean, again, I don't think we're necessarily debating the law itself right now. I don't see us changing any language for the public hearing. I think, though, it's pretty clear that this is going to be a long conversation
Yeah.
during the public hearing, and something that we may not act on
Mm-hmm.
if we're not all comfortable with it, or at least enough of us aren't.
Chief, what are the rules concerning going on to private property?
In regards to
Car that
vehicle and
thinks they
traffic
have
law.
done something illegal.
So if it's just parked in the driveway, you cannot just go into the vehicle and do what you need to. You would need a warrant, yes. Now, if it's something like you were following someone for suspicion of driving while intoxicated, and you followed them and they stopped in their driveway, then you're allowed to act on it.
You could also go on private property for violations of like fire lanes, handicap parking, things like that. We can issue tickets.
Correct.
Other than that, for like speeding and so forth, we have to be invited into those areas. So like the Arbors I think, did that. They gave us permission to enforce some of the codes, some of the laws in the private properties there.
I believe we just enforced
Yeah.
the fire lane up
The
near
fire lanes and the other.
the
The fire
green
lanes, we
house.
could always enforce the fire lanes and things like handicap.
Right,
It's really not that difficult to park and walk into the.
Yeah.
no.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Again, we're setting the public hearing. We absolutely will be debating the merits of this local law during the public hearing. I just kind of feel like that's a better forum for it. Certainly, I'm glad you're raising questions and concerns now.
And then maybe as part of the public hearing, we should explain the magnitude of the monetary arrears that we found out about recently. Because what's compelling us to do this right now, and I think people need to understand the magnitude of the dollars too, to the extent we are interested in doing this.
Right.
We're not just figuring out new ways to, hassle
Make revenue.
hassle our residents, you know?
And really, I mean, if you're looking at having more than 3 parking violations and over $1,000 worth of fines, this isn't something minor. This isn't like, oops, I parked in the wrong place
Right,
once.
yeah, right.
Or the
And-
ticket blew off my windshield.
Right, or the
Yeah.
ticket blew off my windshield 800 times.
Right.
So, it's, I think, we're really looking at, going after people who are repeat offenders in
In a big way.
in a big way. So, all right, any other questions or comments? And again, we'll be debating this, in full, during the public hearing. Right, so again-
I just wanted to point out to the village board that there's a second section that's also being proposed to, as part of this public hearing, and that's on pages 3 and 4, a change to give disposal of abandoned vehicles. So I just didn't want you to think it was just impoundment.
And, I mean, we've certainly, I mean, I can only remember a handful of times when we've dealt with abandoned vehicles. And, I mean, there was the one right over by the Rye Ridge Shopping Center where you get to that little part, the access to that little park. There was another one closer over to Portchester High School. I mean, I can only remember 2, I think, in my 12 years on the board, so.
I believe there's 3 or 4 that I can remember, but
Yeah, that's not
Not a
many.
lot.
Not many.
We're not talking about a lot. All right. Thank you for bringing that up, Ralph. Any other questions or comments?
Nope.
Again, this is voting just to set the public hearing on the local law.
Trustee Heiser?
Yes.
Trustee Crom?
Yes.
Trustee Morlino,
Yes.
Mayor Klein?
Yes, thank you. All right, and again, we look forward to more discussion on this in February. Resolution number 5, considering compensation for non-union personnel for the 25-26 fiscal year.
Now therefore be resolved that the following compensation shall be provided to non-union personnel effective June 1st, 2025. And this is a listing of titles. The resolution's available in my office. It'll be also included in the minutes, but the titles are Administrative Aide, Building Inspector, Communication Services Coordinator, Coordinator Senior Services, Deputy Clerk, Deputy Treasurer, Police Chief, Police Lieutenant, Secretary to the Administrator, Superintendent of Parks and Recreation, Superintendent of Public Works Engineering, Treasurer, and Village Administrator and Clerk. The vast majority of those titles are a 3.25% increase with 3 other adjustments. And be it further resolved that the following benefit modifications are also hereby enacted for the non-union employee group. For employees hired on or after January 1st, 2026, no individual or family dental coverage shall be provided in retirement. For employees prior to that, the individual and family dental coverage will continue to be provided in retirement as it currently exists. 2, increases in longevity payment go for over 8 years goes from $450 to $550. For over 12 years goes from $700 to $800, and 16 plus years from $1,000 to $1,100. And so whereas summer hours shall be permanent and match the schedule for the Teamsters white collar unit. 4, that the family sick leave definition shall be expanded to include parents and also grandparents if living in the same home. And 5, employees should not cash in more than 1/2 of their vacation leave balance.
Thank you, Chris. Can I have a motion and second?
Motion.
So first off, I'd just like to say thank you to all of the people on this list, some of whom are in this room, quite a few. And, thank you for your hard work and dedication to the village. This list is getting shorter and shorter as we go along. We did have a group of administrative workers go for the union representation, which we settled recently. Some people may wonder why this becomes effective June 1st of 2025, and yet we're voting on it now in January of 26. And a lot of times we do go backwards on the non-union compensation, but also we were waiting for a resolution and clarity on the the white collar union.
Yes, and it's our current fiscal year.
And yes, and it's still within our current fiscal year. Any questions or comments from the board?
Nope.
Trustee Heiser?
Yes.
Trustee Crom?
Yes.
Trustee Morlino,
Yes.
Mayor Klein?
Yes, thank you. Resolution number 6, considering approving the submission of a grant application with the New York Department of State for a local government efficiency grant.
Whereas Rybrook is committed to seeking funding opportunities to support and enhance community development, infrastructure, and municipal services, and whereas this grant program is available through the New York State Department of State to provide financial assistance for communities to expand or develop new local service delivery initiatives that will reduce costs, the cost of current or future municipal operations, and incorporate enhanced technologies and processes to modernize the delivery of local services. And whereas Rybrook intends to submit an application to the state local government efficiency grant program for the implementation of a shared records management services project between the villages of Rybrook and Tuckahoe Police Departments. And whereas the village shall request that the local government efficiency grant program fund 90% of the total project costs, with the remaining 10% to be paid by the village. Now, what? They did? I didn't see the email.
Okay.
So
All
we're
right,
not
so-
applying for this.
Don't need to move on the resolution.
Okay,
Okay.
we are not applying for this. Okay.
Withdrawn.
All right. Well, it's unfortunate that we'll be missing out on that opportunity. We wish the best of luck. to
Sounded
those in
good.
Tuckahoe.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right.
All right, then moving on, resolution number 7, considering approving the submission of a grant application with the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation for municipal parks and recreation grant.
Okay. Whereas Rybrook is committed to seeking funding opportunities, whereas Parks and Recreation Grant Program is available through the New York State Department of Parks, Rec, and Historical Preservation to provide funding assistance for the construction of rec facilities and other improvements. And whereas Rybrook intends to submit an application to the State Office of Parks, Rec, and Historic Preservation for the construction of basketball and pickleball courts at Harkness Park. And whereas the village shall request the Municipal Parks and Rec Grant Program fund 90% of the cost, with the remaining 10% paid by the village. Now therefore be resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Rybrook authorizes the submission of the grant to the state for the purpose of securing and funding the construction of basketball and pickleball courts at Harkness Park.
Thank you, Chris. Can I have a motion and a second, please?
Motion.
Second.
So we're not sure if we're going to fully proceed at this point, and obviously we'd want to involve all the residents, but in order to make the application, we need some support of the board to make the application. There has always been discussion to improve and include an additional basketball court, and pickleball is very popular. So, that was restricted for a number of years due to an agreement with the Arbors, but that agreement is long past. That was as part of the, believe it or not, the King Street Fields project. So that is, those years are long gone at this point.
Right.
But it's something that the village wants to consider an improvement of those courts. Rob Berlacci, if you have any other further comment on it?
It's pretty much in the initial stages of.
Yeah. There's not plans, there's no cost allocated yet. We're just going to
Okay.
put an application and see if that's something that they would consider. But it would be one additional tennis court, is that correct?
Yeah,
Bert, why don't
Burke,
you
do you
come up?
mind coming up for a second? I'm just curious what exactly this would entail.
So, basically, in my budget proposal from last year, there was a basketball court in there to go outside the tennis courts, and basically, inside that basketball court is 3 pickleball courts, no additional tennis courts in that.
And that would be basically it's an extension of one additional court on the facility?
It would be across, so it would be the basketball courts would go the same direction as the tennis,
Mhm.
and then the pickleball courts would go the opposite way,
On the same court?
on the same court,
So, all right. so
similar to
it's-
Rye Hills.
Okay, so it would be basically creating that court outside, extending the tennis courts a
Outside
little
the
bit.
existing tennis courts.
Yeah, okay. towards the arbors, or I'm assuming, because there's not as much.
No, it would go towards King Street,
Towards King Street, okay. Okay,
Again, it's,
in that open space right there.
this is part of our, working with our consultant for Millennium Strategies, and they let us know when the grants are available. It's something we've talked about in the past, so if they provide the funding for it, 90% of it, then that's something the village may want to consider. So this is the first step of at least considering it.
right.
Unfortunately, you don't get a lot of benefit of time for discussing it prior to the application being.
Right, that's.
You wish you
the
had
only
the
concern,
benefit.
but,
It's hard.
yeah,
We can let people know that we've submitted an application, just we're transparent about it, you know.
right. Questions, comments from the board?
Sounds worth pursuing.
No downside.
Trustee Heiser?
Yes.
Trustee Crom?
Yes.
Trustee Morlino?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Administrator's report.
And I'll I should let Dan know, let them know at the arbors that, right?
Yeah.
That at least we've made an application.
Yeah, and then that we don't
And
really
we're
have.
far away from any,
Yeah, we're-
any,
Yeah, we're far away from, my only concern, I guess, my only concern with this is, if we apply for this grant, we get awarded this grant and then decide not to go forward with any work, then we may not get another grant from that it'd be tough to,
maybe, but doubtful.
okay.
Yeah, this is towards from what I recall in this grant, it's only for additional facilities for recreation activities.
Right.
Is that right? Bert? This grant is specific for additional recreation opportunities, I believe?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
It's not for replacement of existing.
Correct. If you have multiple projects, you can do multiple applications, but it can't be for the same work at different sites.
Okay.
So it's pretty much site-specific.
Okay.
All right, administrator's report.
Okay. Oh, can I raise, under Administrator's Report, I want to, let me touch on a couple topics, and then we'll talk about the camp fees.
Yeah, I
The-
wouldn't mind, well, okay.
What's that? I was just going to kind of set the stage on where we are on that, and
Okay.
then,
I was almost thinking to let Jenny go first, but.
oh, you could do that if you like.
Yeah, maybe, so she doesn't have to.
Sure. I'll touch on the quick topics, and then
Yeah.
we'll do that. So the mayor mentioned about the snow plowing, so thank you very much. But also just a reminder about sidewalk clearing and hydrant clearing. There is a lot of snow out there, and if you know you have a hydrant out front, please try to clear the hydrant as best you can, so we can get access to it. That's important. It's something that often gets forgotten. And we have gotten calls even about the sidewalks. We're trying to have some flexibility because we know there's a lot of snow on that, but at the same time, some students and so forth have already started calling saying the sidewalks are blocked, we need to get those cleared. So, that's something that reminder of the residents, so please clear the sidewalks and please clear the hydrants. Believe it or not, Christmas trees are probably under there somewhere, Michael, but we'll be picking them up as soon as the snow ever clears. And then lastly, the Public Service Commission last Thursday, January 22nd, approved the Conrad rates. So that those 3-year rates are now in existence. On the revenue side, it's a 2.8% increase on the electric and a 2% on the revenue increase on the gas. These are 87%, it's an 87% reduction from the original Con Ed proposals. And from a bill impact, the average bill would increase on the electric side, average residential bill would go up $5.27 per month in year 1 and $4.95 per month in years 2 and 3. So just want to announce that those rates, the new rates were approved by Con Edison last week, by the Public Service Commission last week.
The percentage increases, is that on usage or is that on the delivery and maintenance?
None of the above is what I could give you a spreadsheet showing the different rates that are out there, because it's also overall increase, and then there's bill impact, and then there's, it gets really complicated. There's how they did it in the settlement and the proposed, and then they shaped them so that when they call shaping them, it's just another way of saying they leveled them out so that they would be, over 3 years, would be a more consistent rate increase. The deliveries are somewhere in the 4s, and just the delivery side, and the bill impact is more in the 2 to 3s.
Because I can only
Although
speak
the
for myself.
residential, it gets more complicated on the gas side for residential.
My last bill was for just under $1,000, 2/3 of which were delivery charges.
Yeah,
not
it's almost
usage.
all, delivery is the big piece.
Yes,
But the overall impact is what you really want to care about, right?
yeah.
The other part, the delivery is definitely the much more substantial part. And that's what it's about, because that's where the increases are pushed into, because the other part, the supply, is just a pass along.
Yeah.
The supply they don't make money from. That's why they don't care if you go with an ESCO
Yeah,
or
right.
whatever. They
That's
don't make
right.
money from that.
Right.
They're very happy not to have to do that.
They own those poles and those
Yeah,
wires.
so the supply side, they could care less because they make no money from it. So really, it comes down to what the bill impact is. The interesting thing the Public Service Commission at the end did was on the gas side of it, the second and third year increase was raised on the residential side, and they pushed it otherwise, and they made the difference up in a different rate, because the gas side, they want to push people away from gas and more into electric. They really want to push towards electric, because the gas supply there's not a lot of gas, the gas is a problem. So it's interesting, the second and third were pushed on the residential gas was pushed up a bit. It's wild.
Yeah.
Very complicated.
One thing I saw is, we've talked about it here a lot, and I think that's good, but I was left with the impression of some of the press stories, and I'm glad I knew better, but that they were talking about the cumulative 3-year increase as if it were an annual increase.
I know.
They were saying, oh, the Con Ed rates are going up, I don't know if they used the word 10% a year or something.
No, it's 10%.
And they said the county government is still fighting it, and, a lot of things got mixed up by the press at the end, I think, and.
Reality is the sound bites, a lot of it was sound bites from officials. The reality is, it's a lot more complicated, and it's a lot more
Yeah.
rates. You actually have to look at the actual rates that you're looking at, and for which group of rates you want. And then you said, you hear people quoting the delivery side, or just the total bill impact. The revenues, what is the revenue increase that they get? So each one of those are all real numbers, but
Yeah.
the question is how people are spinning the information.
Right, and we're having a cold winter.
None of which,
Yeah.
and by the way, none of which is focusing on some of the achievements that was made by our municipal consortium.
None.
Yes.
Which was not just driving down the rates, but the other significant piece is highlighting and making now Con Ed accountable for where their capital money is being spent, so that the money raised in Westchester stays in Westchester.
Yeah.
So that the capital money we're raising here is not going down to New York City, that it comes back and stays in New York, at a reasonable percentage that reflects Westchester's revenue, so that the storm hardening projects and others get done. And now they've got to do that on an annual basis. And the other side of that, they have to do a study of overhead costs versus underground costs, because there's a big sense that the underground is a lot more expensive, obviously. So there's been a big push that maybe the underground rate should have a different rate structure than the overhead, if it's a lot less expensive to maintain and construct. So that would result in the next rate case. Before the next rate case, they have to do a full report on that, so that one of the potential arguments could be that there should be a differential rate for overhead versus underground. And that's significant. So underground is mostly New York, overhead is basically Westchester County and Staten Island.
Excellent.
But that really doesn't get reported on either.
No, I know, yeah. So what's the number, 83% less than
87
87?
on
Almost
the original
90%.
proposal, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, we want to thank all of the other communities, all the other municipalities that were part of the consortium. It really made a huge difference, and it's something that, and it's the first time, and we actually just had a call yesterday. Was it yesterday or today? That was
Today.
That was today?
Yeah, it was
Oh my
today.
God, I was on that today. It seems like yesterday.
I know.
All right, well, that was today. We just had a municipal consortium call today about what the next steps might be.
Good.
Because, part of it could say, all right, well, we're done, we'll see you all in 3 years. when this comes back, or whether there's things that can be done to keep this coalition together, and things that we can work on in the meantime with our council. So, and big thanks to Joel Dichter for all he did in
Yep.
that as well. Anything else, Chris, on the administrator's
Just
report?
the other
All right,
topic, which we'll come
I'm going to go a little
back
bit
to.
out of order here. I am going to ask for the Keenan Bean update on the battery storage systems moratorium.
Drum roll.
I have orders from the peanut gallery to make this quick. Hi, everyone. So you have,
Please state your name.
for the record, Jennifer Gray, Keenan Bean. You have in your packet for tonight a lot of information. There's kind of a lot to unpack here on battery energy storage systems. If you remember back in August, you adopted a local law declaring a moratorium against the review and approval of applications for battery energy storage systems within the village. That moratorium, it was a 6-month moratorium, and it's due to expire in February 26th. You have the option to extend that moratorium if you're not ready to make a decision yet on the regulation of battery energy storage systems within the village. You could terminate the moratorium prior to its expiration, or just simply allow it to expire. I think based on the amount of information that we kind of have to unpack and go through, you may want to consider extending that moratorium. You can do it by resolution. We built that into the local law. Typically, you would have to extend it by local law, but we built that into the local law that you can extend it by resolution. So our office compiled the research material that you have before you tonight. I can walk through it. It kind of goes through what is a battery energy storage system at a very basic level, how the state is regulating battery energy storage systems, some Westchester examples, and then just a preliminary discussion about options that the village may have for regulating or not regulating battery energy storage systems within the village. So you could prohibit them altogether, or if you want to allow for them in some form, or some shape or form, there's a number of options that you have. So, like I said, there's a lot to unpack here. Not expecting any decisions on a direction one way or another tonight from the board, but I think this is a good opportunity to identify what further information you may need or want that might help you to make a decision on what you want to do within the village. So in the interest of time, I'll defer to the board as to whether you'd like me to go through just sort of a high-level summary of the memo that we provided, or whether you just want to dive into
I think it
the
would be
discussion.
helpful for the public, just to kind of describe the lowest size, and there's different tiers, right? And there's different,
Right.
as you said, different levels. So maybe just to describe for the public, what would be the lowest, smallest Tesla type level versus the larger multi-storage areas that could be on a larger site?
Sure.
I think to give people a sense of the magnitude, maybe the levels would be, examples of the levels might be something to better understand.
Okay. I mean, initially, just to kind of put some context in this and framework on it, a battery energy storage system is basically a rechargeable battery, right? And it can come in a number of different shapes and sizes. NYSERDA has been in the forefront of developing a model ordinance for municipalities that choose to regulate battery energy storage systems, and also providing a lot of guidance materials for local governments. So in the model ordinance that was created by NYSERDA, they define battery energy storage systems in terms of tiers. Not included within the definition is your, like, you know, a car battery or an electric motor vehicle that you may have at your house. Also, like your EV charger that you may have at your house if you have an electric vehicle, that is also not a battery energy storage system. It's not a battery at all. It's just sort of a conduit for getting electricity into your vehicle. So a Tier 1 BESS, battery energy storage system, is a battery that, or a combination of batteries that have an energy capacity of less than or equal to 600 kilowatt hours. This is your smaller scale, like residential, like a home solar battery, or in a commercial setting, it could be like a light commercial, like outdoor cabinets for a business that might want to store energy on site to use during peak demands. It could be one cabinet, it could be multiple cabinets, but it must be less than 600 kilowatt hours. A Tier 2 battery energy storage system has greater than 600 kilowatt hours, and that's sort of the more intensive sites that you typically see with multiple cabinets or multiple storage container looking boxes out in a field, in a location with multiple units. In terms of what other Westchester municipalities have done, there are a number of Westchester municipalities that have regulations on the books. Tier 1, as recommended by NYSERDA, though, again, the smaller, residential battery energy storage systems or smaller commercial systems are, as recommended by CERTA, just governed by a building permit, electrical permit, administrative review. NYSERDA recommends for the Tier 2 level that it be regulated at a higher level, requiring special use permit and site plan approval from the municipality. I'm also going to call Mike out. Michael Nowak is also here tonight. He has a lot of knowledge about battery energy storage systems. So, Mike, if you want to add anything to what I'm contributing, feel free to do so.
But it does cover a wide range of types of storage. I mean,
It does.
the Tier 1s could be as small as, you've seen the ads on the Tesla walls, right? The walls with the batteries, the Tier 1, and it goes in residential. It's more compact and is more residential in nature. And then you can get to the Tier 2s, which could be small or large, depending on what you're looking at. You're looking at, it could be just a smaller box-type structure, or it could be much bigger on a commercial site that's storing this material, storing it in a much bigger type facility, and can be quite big, even in Tier 2, even in a grid type, right?
Right. So if you look in the materials I provided you, I actually included a PowerPoint presentation that was done by NYSERDA. This was from a recent webinar that was performed by the New York Planning Federation. And on page 8 of that PowerPoint presentation, they give a couple of examples, some photos of different types of
It's very helpful.
BESS. Yeah. So on the left, if you're at page 8, you'll see sort of the Tesla box inside of a garage, that the residential example that Chris just mentioned. And then the next image over to the right, you'll see there's, sort of the one cabinet. This is at a commercial site. Obviously, it looks like an office building. This particular site, it looks like it's estimated at 50 to 750 kilowatt hours, so it's possible that something that size could be over 600 and regulated as a Tier 2. But that's sort of the example of the smaller commercial application where a business may want to store energy on site for its own use during peak demand. And all of this is to sort of, better control your energy costs. We were just talking about energy costs with Con Ed, right? And have less reliance on those peaker plants that are typically reliant upon fossil fuels. So as you go forward in the slide, you'll see some of the larger examples.
Most of the community, we've read a lot about a lot of opposition to more of the fields or the grids.
Yeah.
Is that where most of the opposition has come from? Either you or Michael, about more of the grid style and large storage locations versus the Tier 1 type, or smaller tier 2?
I think it depends on the community. I think and I outlined this in the memo towards the back, when you're thinking about if you do want to regulate within the village, things to think about. And one of the things that is really important to think about is the capacity of your fire service, your fire department, and whether they have the training and the equipment that would be necessary to battle a fire of this kind, because even for the smaller ones, it could take a particular, specialized training and equipment to battle even the residential.
And do we have any residential right now? My understanding is we may have a few of the Tesla-type, wall-type ones in the community. I feel like 2 or 3 of them I've heard, but I don't know if that's accurate or not.
I'm not sure.
Is our moratorium on those tier 1s right now?
It's on all of them.
Everything.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not, well, a lot of people, I would think, tier 1 is a small battery. It's not really a,
Yeah, but it's still, the
Yeah, but
thing
it's
is, it
most-
still poses a fire.
it does, but you
it's-
can't put those fires out.
Even from the little scooters, people are finding,
Yeah, I
it's-
understand, but I think
When,
we should at least allow tier 1s.
well, understand what you're allowing. In tier 1, you're talking about up to 600 megawatts. I'm sorry, 600 kilowatt
Kilowatts.
hours. And tier 1 units are, just to put it into perspective, 4 tractor-trailer size containers.
Yeah,
Okay? 4 tractor-trailer
Can be.
size containers
Well-
can be. That's a tier 1 unit. And Mr. Gray and I were talking about this earlier, is that these house units, these little ones that are initially had started off as emergency backups,
Yeah.
now turned into a solar generated
well, how
backup
big are those? How many
fall,
kilowatts?
they fall under tier 1. Those could range from 5 kilowatts to 50 kilowatts, and they're lumped into tier 1. So maybe if the village wants to consider something like this, they could maybe make a tier 1R,
Yes,
like a residential unit up from X size to Y size.
that's fair.
And that would be separate, whereas your tier 1, tier 2 are more your commercial, industrial grade units. Understand that the village does have some critical infrastructure here. There are some office buildings that do cater to telecom and things of that nature. So they may potentially request something like this at a commercial property. So just understand, tier 1 is not just your small units. They're your light-duty industrial, I'm going to say, size. So-
Rightfully so, and that's what we probably should be doing. We should be doing, allowing at least the home version where the 500 or 50 kilowatts.
Well, from
or
5 kilowatts,
kilowatt,
maybe
yeah.
up to a certain size.
When we figure out what size would be appropriate, because, everybody's going green, and everybody wants to go green, and we're not even giving the residents an opportunity to go green.
Well, I think, in the past, there was the opportunity. This is just putting a hold on it. The reason the moratorium is there is so that we can learn more about this and then figure out what the right legislation is for the village of Rybrook. Trustee Crum.
Yeah, no, what's confusing in the material is that people keep talking about the difference between kilowatts and kilowatt hours. And one is an instantaneous amount of power, and one is a power over time, an amount of energy. And it gets, in the materials, it even gets quite confusing. I think we need to make sure that we understand what we're dealing with. Also, I will say, as an emerging issue, this is really important for supporting renewable energy. Solar, wind, they're not steady necessarily forms of energy, especially at night, obviously. There's times in the California grid where 25% of the nighttime energy is coming from batteries. My understanding is it's more like 5% of the overall nighttime, or satisfying the load 5% of the time maybe overall. But there's times when they have tremendous solar that it's super helpful. And we're talking about rates. My guess is we don't have to worry too much about tier 3. My other questions were where the cutoff is from tier 2 to tier 3, because I don't think we have large transmission lines, really high voltage lines coming through Rybrook. So my guess is a developer would want to put the really massive facilities, closer to the main transmission lines. But I do think we shouldn't rush to just limit it too much, because it can be a real asset for rates and for making renewable much more cost effective. It's one of the biggest, if you don't have things like this, you have to build 3 times the renewable as you do fossil to make the system work. It's just that, so to me, it's important, and to me, we definitely shouldn't be hesitating too much with the residential.
Could we do like a moratorium where, if we're gonna change, reinvent the moratorium again here, do it for like, large, only to a certain size and larger?
No, I would be against that. I would want a complete moratorium on until we figure out what our legislation is gonna be.
Yeah, because if you.
That's another 6 months, people can't get battery storage in their house, residential though.
If we haven't had that many
We
applications.
only have a
to begin
handful
with.
that I'm aware of, and,
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's 3 or 4 in the whole village that have them.
Yeah, we're trying to get ahead of it more than anything else right now, this issue. Jen, can you mention a little bit more, what, under a special, first of all, I was surprised to see that we could just ban them outright, too.
Yeah, that's another
I
thing.
thought I thought the laws would require us to, always seems that the laws always require these things, although you can limit where they are, kind of thing. But this one has more flexibility, it seems. But again, it sounds like the village board would like to allow certain types that might be best for Rybrook. The question is, what would give the board, if it was a special permit, for instance, for the larger facilities, how much, if it's allowed as a special permit in certain zones or in the village, whether it be a floating or whether it be in zones, how much right does the village board then have to deny it at a later date if they choose to?
Sure. So if it's a special permit and this applies to, if this is a special permit to any special permit that's currently on your books, the way they work is a special permit is a permitted use in the district as long as it meets the standards that are listed for that special permit. Your code currently has a series of general standards that apply to every single type of special permit in your code. And then for particular types of uses, like a child care center, for example, there are specific standards in the code that apply to just that special use. The applicant would need to demonstrate that they meet all of your general standards, which are general things like it's going to be in harmony with the development of the neighboring properties, things of that nature. And then the more specific standards. And here I would see the more specific standards would be things related to, probably screening, fencing, locational standards in terms of certain setbacks from other structures and other property lines, things along that
But
nature.
most of that would be, you'd be able to overcome a lot of those standards.
Yeah, so if an applicant can demonstrate that they meet each of those standards, then the board must grant the special permit. Your discretion lies in whether they've met those standards. And some of the standards are black and white, like, do they meet a 50-foot setback? There's not a lot of discretion, right? They either meet it or they don't.
Right.
But there are standards that are, that apply more judgment by the approval authority, like the one I mentioned before. Is it, in keeping with the, harmonious development of the surrounding areas? That's where you have a little bit more discretion.
So you can apply for a special permit to put a storage battery in your garage?
Currently in Rybrook, no.
Oh, okay.
No, we don't
No
have that
standards on it,
legislation
right.
on the book. We
Okay.
have no
We have nothing,
no
which is
legislation on
why
the
we
books
put a
right now.
moratorium on.
Okay,
things,
I
'cause we
got
don't
it.
have
I'm just
anything.
Right,
trying to
right.
understand. Okay.
So is there what would provide the village board or the legislative authority the most flexibility in reviewing an application if they got a large application that they weren't comfortable with in a particular location?
Probably the most flexibility I would encourage you to look at what the Village of Terrytown did, and that material is in the packet that you were given tonight in the chart of the Westchester municipalities. I think Ossining may have done, or maybe it was Briarcliff. Terrytown and one other municipality, they addressed it in terms of a floating district. So essentially what they said is an applicant can apply to the village board to create a floating district at which time the village board will consider whether to create that district to allow for this or not. So ultimately, giving the board complete legislative discretion as to whether or not they're going to allow for that legislative change or not.
Yeah, and in that, they're talking about 200 feet of residential building, so. And a lot of this is in recognition of the fire hazards that have
Right.
been posed by some of the.
Yeah, and I will say, so on the fire piece of it, back in, I think it was 2023, the governor did create a working group to study these issues of battery energy storage systems and their impact on fire safety. And that group came up with a series of recommendations that was issued in July of 2024. Almost all, if not all, of those recommendations were incorporated into the most recent state code that was just adopted last year and became effective on January 1. So in some of the research I did in preparing all these materials, a lot of the guidance documents and articles that I was reading described New York as having one of the strictest and most comprehensive state-level regulations on fire safety for battery energy storage systems. So I think in terms of that, I think the state has come a long way over the past few years.
What have been the biggest opposition to applications that have come, other than the traditional just NIMBY, I don't want it near me? But what do you see as the real issues that have been raised by, about applications that have come in? Is it the fire issue? Is it?
Fire issue has been the controlling, and Mike might have something to say about this as well, but I think
Just trying to figure
the
out
fire
what's the
safety
red flag
issues-
areas that we should know about?
And not just from a concern of being nearby these facilities and potentially being impacted by the fire, but also the safety of the responders, right? Making sure that they have the right equipment and the right training, because it was a Sal that said these things burn forever, right?
Yeah, they do.
So, yeah, that is one of the considerations.
You can't put these fires
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, so do you have adequate water supply? Are you going to, is the fires department going to be using foam, which then creates, PFAS considerations as well? So there's a lot of benefits to these from an environmental perspective and getting clean energy and getting off reliance on fossil fuels, but then there's some cons as well from an environmental perspective.
So also, a lot of the cons are the industrial look of the site. Okay, they're heavily monitored. They request a fence around the entire property. They have cameras. They have AC units that run 24/7. They to cool the units
You're talking
down.
about large-scale lot size, or?
Even tier ones.
Okay.
Even tier one units have built-in air handlers that cool down the units. So obviously fire has been number one on the forefront. One of the units in Orange County just caught fire for the third time a month ago. So that's always on the forefront. The New York State codes have caught on with regards to requirements for cabinets and isolation, but it still comes down to lithium ion. Once it catches fire, it runs away. It goes. You can't put it out. So if you're in a watershed, a wetland, how is that being handled and contained? That water that now is being poured on the fire is going where? Is it being captured? Is it retained? These are the things that come into consideration. Another point of contention a lot of times is, what are these units used for? Are they just a rechargeable battery that's going to offload the power back into the grid? Are they really tied into a solar farm? Are they tied into wind power? Down in this area, we don't have a lot of solar arrays. They're starting to build up. So a lot of residents view these as just business entities that are putting batteries in to make a profit. They're not owned by a utility company. They're owned by individual corporations or overseas companies that specialize in this technology. So, yes, we talk about the rates, but who's paying for that? Because at nighttime, a lot of times, these things are recharging only to sell it back into the grid through arbitration. Okay, so, arbitrage, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's beneficial to the system, though.
100%. So that's the opposition that a lot of people have had. I mean, everything has a plus and minus, but A, it's been the fire, the safety, and the high level of security by having the fence. It's open, it's lit up. You know, not in my backyard.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking of the village as a whole, I don't see us having applications for commercial grade. I mean, it may be, first of all, we're losing some of our businesses right now, some of the larger, corporate parks that we've had in the past. A hotel that would potentially, have been something that would have been looking for this, I don't think really exists necessarily anyway. It would be more for the home occupation and the, ones and, the smaller size ones for smaller businesses for residential applications. But I think we still need to consider it. I think, my question to you is, what do you need from us at this point? What more information do we need before we start getting to a point where we may be able to draft legislation on this?
Yeah, that's a good question. So,
I just want to add one more item, I'm sorry, and then I'll step away. With regards to the locations for these units, do understand that we do have multiple feeders that come through the village. There are 13,000 volts that handle multiple municipalities, okay? So there are sites in the village that can handle these commercial units, Tier 1 and Tier 2, that can backfeed the grid, that can backfeed a 13 kV feeder, okay, and provide power for 500, 1,000, 5,000 houses, okay? So there may be a benefit to that kind of a unit located here in the village, in proximity to White Plains, to Harrison, to Purchase. Don't think that power is only going to stay here in the village.
Right. No, and I don't think that way. I mean, I guess I'm just trying to think of locations. I mean, off the top of your head.
I could give you 12 locations off the top of my head.
Hold on. I think it would be useful to know some examples of what we think.
Up and
An
down
application.
King Street corridor, up and down Anderson corridor, up and down Westchester Avenue,
800 Westchester.
Anderson Hill Road, there are multiple sites.
800 Westchester.
800 Westchester alone. I mean, if you want a few
Right,
names, I can
800
give you a few
Westchester would
names,
be
but,
right, yeah.
I mean, a few addresses, but there are multi-acre sites that could handle this without a problem. There was one in northern Westchester County on 13 acres that would have been the largest in New York State, on
Wow.
13 acres.
Hmm.
Our compost site is 13 acres. Doesn't take a large piece of property. I mean, 13 acres is big, don't get me wrong,
Right.
but from my perspective as a superintendent, 13 acres is not a huge site. So 13 acres on that site would have been the largest in New York State.
So to that point, I think one of the important pieces of information for the village board to understand is exactly that, where if we were just look at the state code requirements alone, which do provide some setback requirements and locational requirements, what sites within the village would be eligible for some of these larger installations? Just so you understand what would be possible.
I feel like when we try to do that, it seems like that's almost becomes a trap because you think you've come up with all the answers and then something else pops up that you didn't think about.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, is the Tarrytown floating zone type approach more logical so that the board would have a little more flexibility, but also where it might be appropriate, it might be a good spot for them, the board would have the ability to put it in a place that, would have less impact on the neighbors, but still provide the benefits this kind of facility could provide. So
Yeah.
maybe some of the homework for us is to kind of really take a hard look at like that local law and let us know the other community that it is. Maybe that's something the board wants to think about. I think everyone's in agreement some type of allowance for residential tier ones makes sense. And beyond that, I think we got to look and see what that threshold would be and what type of approval the board is most comfortable with as a policy.
Right.
And if anyone's looking for those municipal, it's on the Keenan Bean memo, starting on page 84, shows the local laws that have been enacted.
And I think we embedded links, so if you control-click on each of those sections of code, it should take you right to E-code to see the actual law that's in place within each of those municipalities.
Since I assume drafting and considering legislation in this instance is going to be a Herculean task, are we going to have a resolution in February to extend the moratorium?
Yeah, I think we'll need to.
Yeah.
I think we'll
I
need.
agree.
I think we'll need. I don't see us in a month passing legislation.
No.
Yeah, that's right. To me, the biggest issue is where we draw the line. To me, just my own personal opinion, the super big tier 3, in my own mind, probably, again, just my opinion, out. But, and to me, it seems like a no-brainer to me, but maybe I want to hear more about the fire safety tier 1, because it's not clear to me where the line really is. But like an electric car parked in a garage is like 80 kilowatt hours. It could easily be 80 to even 100 kilowatt hours of lithium-ion batteries in the electric car parked in the garage. There could easily be 2 electric cars parked in a garage. So to me, I'm not so sure that we don't already have the issue with lithium-ion battery fires. And we better be prepared to address it, because there's going to be, maybe there's a pause in the number of electric cars, but they're coming back again at some point. But to me, the difficult point is going to be, and I would love to see us be able to support larger commercial units if it's supporting commercial businesses, right? I mean, I get the idea of not wanting to necessarily support what Mike was saying, call them speculators, if you will, or even though I think they do a service. But it's one thing not doing the standalone thing, but to me, we'd want to have, if 800 Westchester Avenue wants to put in a fairly large unit and it's done well, I think we should want to figure out how to support that and how big it needs to be to sort of support that. To me, is going to be the tricky part of figuring out where the line is.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why I like that
is
idea of the floating zone, really, in a lot of ways, gives you a lot of that flexibility.
Right.
It does give you the flexibility. I mean, just looking through this quickly, I mean, but the city of Rye prohibits anything above a tier 1. So, there are definitely different ways of going about this, and I agree with you. There absolutely is benefit. I mean, even if it's just feeding the grid, and there is a little bit of an environment. There is an environmental benefit to that.
Right. I mean, if tier 1 is helpful to the commercial people too, that would make sense to me,
To serve the commercial property, you mean?
Right. I'm just a little worried about arbitrarily saying tier 1, but only for residential or something, unless I know more about what, yeah.
And again, this is almost, we don't know until
Right,
we start
yeah,
getting
right.
applications for any of this.
Which is okay.
It's kind of a lot of guesswork.
It's good to be early on this one.
It is.
Laws can be modified later on, too, don't forget.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I go back to my former question, which is, what do you need from us to get to the next steps, and what should we really be considering?
Well, it sounds like there might be some receptivity to the floating zone concept. So I can provide you some more information about what that would look like and how that would apply within the village. It sounds like we need a little bit more data and information on trying to figure out if we are going to allow for like tier 1 light, I'll call it, right? Maybe not fully up to the 600 kilowatt that NYSERDA defines tier 1 as, but something a little less than that. Where's the realistic threshold? So if, for example, 800 Westchester Avenue wanted to install something to serve its building in times of peak demand or outages, what size battery energy storage system would they be looking to serve that purpose? I don't know the answer to that question as I
We'd be
sit
really
here
impressed if you did, though.
No, absolutely not. So we can get you a little bit more information on what those realistic numbers might be, if you're interested in kind of carving out something lesser than the tier one.
Right, almost for the residential application, yeah, we're a small, very small business, not to the size of 800.
So we
I
have
think
to put a
it was-
vote on a
was
moratorium
mine,
to extend it now?
No, we
No,
don't
that's
have, no,
gotta
we need a
be-
resolution.
That'll be a resolution at one of the next two meetings.
Okay.
So
It's just time.
it's-
yeah.
Just a resolution, it doesn't take it takes one meeting.
No public hearing.
Good.
And, a lot of municipalities in Westchester have adopted moratoria on this very issue, and have extended it for several periods. So some of them have been placed for over a year at this point. I'm not advocating for that. I think it's always good to, to get this addressed in the most efficient and quickest manner possible, but it's a big issue to tackle, so.
Maybe we shouldn't wait for more villages to figure it out.
Well, in a way,
See what
So we
others
can,
do,
well, we're in a better
larger
position.
sample size.
Yes.
We're in a better position now than we were, a year ago, because we do have the new fire code in place, the new
Right.
state code. So there are a lot of updated requirements already in place.
Does the other local law also need to be extended at the same meeting?
It should, yeah,
The
Yeah.
housing, right?
yeah, that's in progress. I know that's not really on the agenda for tonight.
No, but
Right.
since, just so the board's aware, we're going to have to extend both.
I was gonna ask the same question, so. Because we passed them on the same night, so.
Right.
Yes.
As soon as I saw that it was ending February 26th, I said, oh.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments from the board? I'd say thank you for starting to put
Okay.
this all
Thank you.
together.
Sure.
Seems like we've got a ways to go, but hopefully, this gets us headed on the right path of seeing where we can go with drafting legislation on this issue. So, again, to allow for us to be with the times as we possibly can while keeping our residents safe. So,
Mayor, can I ask a question? If it's February 24th, we could extend the extension. Is that a reasonable time for everyone to provide additional feedback? Or did you have time to prepare the additional information that you said you'd give to the board? Or do you need more time? I'm trying to think as we could put it on the agenda as one item,
Yeah.
both a resolution and an update.
Certainly on the, further information on the floating districts, that I can provide very easily. I think I'm gonna need to, contact some resources to figure out what the realistic thresholds might be.
Okay.
But we can strive for it.
Well, we could talk about it at the resolution item anyhow, so we could see where it is.
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
okay, good. All right, thank you very much.
all right, thank you. All right, one last item on the agenda, which is a discussion of the camp fee survey. There is a summary of issues and options. I know that Trustee Epstein, who is not able to be at this meeting tonight, this is a topic very close to her, so I expect us to have a little discussion. I don't expect us to make any decision tonight.
Yes, and that was certainly the expectation, but we wanted to share with you, and also Rob Bertolacci is here to answer any questions if you have anything that you'd like him to receive as well. So we've had a chance to talk about it and look at the survey's pretty much done at this point. We received a good response. I think 68 people responded, not to every question, but I think we had a good response. And there was just 3 questions that were asked, and the first question was, typically the travel camp goes on 4 trips a week. Adding 1 trip would add anywhere from 60 to 180 per week per camper for the cost of the travel camp, charter bus, and entrance fee. And then we asked how people how they'd feel. Would they want us to add a trip with the fee increase, provide the current level, and keep the fees where they are, or just didn't have an opinion on it? On that one, 45% saying they were favored adding an additional trip. 20% said supported the current level of trips, and About 25% had no opinion or were not yet in that travel camp, so they didn't have any thoughts on that process. The staff recommendation I'm looking at is certainly we could add a trip a week, and we'd probably put the schedule up to the 180 per week per camper for the fee schedule if the board wanted to consider that as an option. So again, no decisions, no feedback really needed tonight, but we do need to make a decision by the next board meeting. So we'll have a resolution that we can talk about, but we just wanted to give a little heads up on where the staff was on this for the board and also where the survey came out from the feedback. So staff's recommendation again on the first one is to add the additional trip per week because most people seem to prefer that option, and increase the fee schedule to another 180 per week per camper on that fee schedule. The second question has to do with said the day camp typically goes on 4 trips per summer, and adding an additional camp trip would add about 55 to 65 per camper. Because for a charter bus, which is probably what we'd end up doing on that one, or 30 to 40 for a school bus. So currently the trips go on 4 trips on the day camp. So increasing 1 additional would mean out of a 6-week camp, the summer day camp would have 5 trips if you added 1 additional. And that's not a per week increase, that's an overall increase just for those campers that sign up for either 5 or 6 weeks, because if you didn't, you're already at those limits. So adding 1 trip, so the staff recommendation on this, most people supported adding an additional trip for the day camp, and that was about over half, so that was 51%. 33% said keep to the current level, and 16% had no opinion. So the staff recommendation on that one is to add 1 more trip and add $65 per camper for the fee schedule for those that sign up only for those that sign up for the 5 weeks or the 6 weeks. Whether it be 5 or 6, it's still one $65 fee because it's the same number of trips. 6 weeks is still 5 trips. 5 weeks is still 5 trips. The other one is the trickiest one, and this is one that's the most difficult and probably brings out the most emotions from people, the parents of the 6th graders. There's some that would like the 6th graders to participate in the travel camp or have the option to participate in the travel camp. And then you have others that say, the 6th graders should stay in the day camp because of the age differences, because we have ages from 6th to 10th grade, currently 7th to 10th grade. So it can be very difficult. There are concerns with the age differences that the kids don't always, they have different maturity levels, different, there can be some, I don't want to say minor bullying, things like that, which certainly we stop whenever we see it and we address it right away when we can. But when you get in the bigger parks or bigger travel areas, it gets more difficult to do that. So there is a recommendation from, I know Superintendent of Parks and Recreation he's here tonight. Bert feels very strongly that that's a very big age difference, and we want the board to consider that as something that really should be carefully considered if it's going to be implemented. There's things that we can do if the board does want to go in that direction, things like keeping the younger kids on separate buses and than the older kids. So that'll at least help on the bus trip part of it. But once they're in the park, the reality is the kids will be more mixed together, even though they do have counselors that are with them. The other part of this is on the coach trips, we don't know if that we'd be able to accommodate that, because currently, without hurting the older grades, because the coach trips, which is basically about one a week, is that what that is? More, huh? 4 in the summer. 4 of the trips in the summer. Now they go on trips. 5 now. It would be 5 days a week. Almost all of those are school buses, but there is 4 coach trips over the summer. But on the coach trips, we only get 1 bus, and they're the most expensive buses. So for us to add a second bus would be difficult. And if you required that the younger kids would sign up, it's always maxed out at the 40. The 40 is the maximum number of participants we can have. So if you opened up another grade, that means there's a large potential to bump the older kids. We don't know if that's what we're trying to accomplish. Particularly the older kids have always had access to the travel camp, and it's good for them. They don't have many other similar alternatives to go to places, other locations for camps or other things that they can do to keep busy in the summer. So the thought here was if the board wanted to allow the sixth graders to go on the travel camp, that they would only go on the school bus days, which would basically be 4 out of the 5 days. And for that, we would have to hire some additional staff, just for our comfort level, both to accommodate them, plus you have a little more supervision. And we'd have to, we would basically try to do our best to keep on separate buses and so forth. Bert and I had some other discussions where Bert was thinking maybe they could go on a different trip than the other kids, too. That might be a possibility, but some of that depends on how many people enroll and whether you can fill up a bus or a small bus. So that would really depend on whether, so some of that may need to be flexible, depending on the number of people that sign up. That's one of the things that you really don't know until it's done. So that was kind of an overview. There are concerns there, but if the board wants to go in that direction, and the majority of people did want to go in that direction, 73% supported either requiring them to be in the travel camp or giving the parents the option, and 27%, which is not insignificant, so wanted them to stay in day camp. So it is an interesting perspective. The majority certainly would like the option to go into the travel camp. We have concerns, but at the same time, if the board wants to do it, we'll do our best to try to manage that the best way we can. So we're not looking for answers tonight, but we want to give you feedback on what we saw in the survey and what some of the staff recommendations are. Bert, did I miss anything?
All right, well, thank you, Chris. And I think, there is a lot to weigh. Obviously, we do like sending out the surveys, as you said earlier, during the communications presentation, and getting to know the feel of the parents who are sending their kids to this. I think, like you said, the first two decisions are more financial than anything else. I think, those will be easier to weigh. Like I said, I'd like to make sure that we're not making any decisions tonight, but we do understand that we are going to have to make a decision at the next board meeting, that the next board meeting is not just a discussion item. We're going to actually have to act on this to then put anything into place. I think a lot of valid points are brought up with this. Now, remind me, for years as long as I can remember, the age groups have been the age groups. It was really just after this past summer that we started considering moving the sixth graders, and I think that was in relation to some incidents that had occurred.
I think actually some of the parents wanted, the parents really wished, they said, when we did the surveys out, again, we received feedback from the surveys, some of the parents of the fifth graders were saying when the kids go into sixth, they don't want to be in the day camp because they feel like they're the elementary school kids rather than going into middle school, which is what they'll be doing in September. So then we said, well, we wanted to hear from everyone, so we did the survey outreach to all the participants.
So so I'm assuming then by this is when we say sixth grader, this is going into sixth.
Correct.
No,
Yeah.
going to seventh.
No, 6, 7, and 8, going into 6.
So
Oh, these are fifth graders going into sixth grade.
They're rising sixth graders.
Graders.
Yes.
Right, so when we say,
Oh.
and then I think that's an important distinction to make, that this isn't a student that has already spent the full year on the school bus.
Correct.
If they ride the school bus, they haven't spent a full year on the school bus with the older kids. They've just spent the full school year on the elementary school buses.
They're leaving elementary and going into middle school.
And I think that's an important distinction for, it's rising sixth graders. So just finished fifth grade, if camp starts the day out, a couple days after school ends, they just finished fifth grade.
Yeah.
So, something definitely to consider.
And the majority of the kids are in 7th and 8th, right? And then we have some 9th and 10th.
It's rising seven, rising.
Yes.
We say that it's always rising,
Yes.
going into, yep.
So basically, a rising seven is only a year older than a rising six.
Yes.
You can't look at the rising six compared to the rising 10 and go, well, that's a
Correct.
huge difference.
Right.
How about the maturity of the kids, that grade, the rising
There's a
sixth
big,
grade?
When you come up.
there's a big difference.
I mean, this is somebody who's lived in camp from operating at them
You
to,
probably can give us a better feel for what these kids are like.
I know
age
also
difference.
Bert, something to just talk about. I know you've had concerns also about how this will affect enrollment at the different.
Well, before we get into enrollment, I'm going to tell you that I'm very concerned about 11-year-olds up to 15-year-olds in the same camp. We have issues with bullying at the regular day camp. We've had to ask a couple of kids to leave camp because they were bullying other kids. There was a couple of incidents last year and a couple of incidents the year before where we had some kids that were bullying other kids and we had to ask them to leave. It only gets worse as they get older. I've been around Rybrook Day Camp since I was 13 years old. Before Rybrook was Rybrook. And things just don't change. So you can change however you try and do things, but kids will be kids. And having that wide of a wide range of ages in one grouping is just a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot to have the 4th, 5th, and 6th graders together. And we're trying to do that a little bit differently this year, if that's the way we go, in that we're just going to have the 5th and 6th graders together, because the 4th through 6th grade is a tough group itself. So,
could you describe, when you say bullying, without naming names, obviously, but what kind of stuff do you see?
it's name calling, it's teasing, it's a lot of stuff that it's mental. It's mental for these kids, and it's hard for them to deal with it.
I mean, to me, it is a real concern. You know, I have a son who is in 7th currently, and when I think about, even the difference of maturity in a year with him.
For sure. And then you could take into account that in the 4th through 6th grade group in the day camp, boys are separated from girls. In the travel camp, they're all commingled together. So that's another factor that,
Yeah. The health and safety are probably the most important thing, and if it's not going to be a safe, healthy environment, then it's a no-brainer. Shouldn't do it. Yeah.
just I have some concerns, that's all.
Okay.
No, it feels like it creates a lot of logistical issues that, I'm not sure of anything, but the parents probably weren't considering a lot of the details that you know about having run the programs, and the issue about the capacity on the bus and having to bump kids. And that, I don't know, I'm inclined, I know this is not a decision point, but just sense to go with staff recommendations that are closest to the program.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Right.
But
I think I'm
that's
so
just the
inclined as
sense.
well, but I
Yeah.
don't, again,
No,
I
it's
don't
not a
wanna make
decision, yeah.
any decision tonight. I think I want to have trustee Epps.
Right, oh, absolutely.
in here.
Yeah, not a decision, not a decision.
But I will encourage her to watch some of this video.
No, because the time was tight, we felt that was the right thing to do to bring it to you guys, and at least tell you where we are, so everyone could
Absolutely.
really have time to digest everything. We're not looking for an answer tonight.
Yeah, no, it's not my answer, it's just,
Yeah.
it seemed like you wanted a little bit of feedback before next meeting.
And if we choose to move forward, bringing the 6th graders up, I think we really need to give a lot of thought on how
Yeah.
to be all-inclusive for the older kids as well, for the simple reason that they're already there. So you're bringing the 6th graders into this fold. We need to make sure that we protect those spots for the 7th, 8th, 9th, and
In other words, not be
Saturday,
bumped.
10th
You don't want to see them
graders.
get bumped.
Right, no, I follow that, yeah.
And it does become problematic. To the other points of this, What's typically done, so in the travel camp on the 5th day, what's typically done on the day when you're not traveling?
They're usually doing something in the park. We have somebody come to the park and do something with them on that particular day. Like last year I brought in a game truck one day. We did laser tag another day in the park. So we try and be creative with them. The last day of camp last year, we did color wars, so that's always a nice thing to do. It's like the Olympics.
How many people don't show up those days, do you think?
Well,
What percent would you
The last day
think?
of camp, there's a good percentage,
Yeah.
because they all want to do that. It's something different that they haven't really done all camp.
Mhm.
But on days in the park, attendance is definitely lower.
By half or a quarter?
I honestly haven't really looked at it,
Okay.
but it's definitely lower. I can tell you that when we go on trips, on the way back to camp, the kids are all on their cell phones. Mom, I'm on my way back to camp, pick me up. So we're trying to, because I think in the past, prior to Janice leaving, the general consensus was she would send out an itinerary when the buses were leaving and when the buses were getting back. And everyone would take in that information and plan to show up at camp when the bus leaves and for mommy and daddy to pick them up when it got back to camp. We're trying to get away from that because camp is 8:30 to 4, unless it's an extended day trip. And on those extended day trips, yes, you can call mommy and daddy on the way back and let them know that 5:30 we're getting back in the park, and then you can pick them up then. But we're trying to make a general push to let the parents know that our camp runs from 8:30 to 4.
You will have an answer from us at our next board meeting.
You want me at the next board meeting?
If you're able to come, that'd be great.
Yeah, I
I
think
can
that
be
would
here, but it'll probably be later,
Like what time?
like around 8:30.
Yeah, we could do that, right?
Yeah, I think that would be helpful.
Okay.
Thanks, bro.
All right. Any other questions or comments from the board regarding any item? Any questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, the next meetings of the Board of Trustees will be February 10th and February 24th, 2026. Thank you and have a good night.